was JJ and Belinda too.
Nah, Belinda.
You're gossipy. What do you mean?
Yeah, Belinda started drama.
I know.
You pretend like you want to keep the peace, but you're like, did you hear?
But like, what do you feel?
Right.
Or just Mark.
You're like,
Also, Jacob, you better grab the last piece of coffee cake before it's gone, bro.
we ate all that coffee cake. Yeah, we had the Hawaii coffee cake with this part.
Where did you guys take this picture?
Such a good one.
That's like a week.
So this fall, our drama students here at Davenport North High School put on a production of Michael Frayn's classic farce, Noises Off. After brainstorming with Dr. Anderson about how I could incorporate something from my program into my graduate work from this semester, I settled on the idea of a photo analysis project in which my students could help me reflect on the experiences and processes involved in producing our annual fall play. I must admit that I was happy to have an excuse to spend some time with my Noises Off cast again, because they're a wonderful group of enthusiastic and dedicated students who really did a good job on the show. Further, I don't usually get to spend time debriefing my cast and crew members after a production because we're usually already moving on to the next project. As a teacher, I know that reflecting on one's work is crucial to continued learning and improvement. Yet it's difficult to build the time in, and even more difficult to get students to commit to something after the fact. When I suggested that I might bring a homemade treat, which is always my famous coffee cake, they were all in.
Well, I just remember my scene literally taking until the week of the show to know what the lines were. Because it was the end of Act 1, and this is...
That's Act 3.
No, it's Act 1 because I have the sheet on.
I get it.
I'm getting the picture in there.
Yeah. I remember this just taking forever because, no offense, Casey, but we were not on top of our lines for this part of the act. And it was different every night, like literally different.
It was.
Every single night. It was a different ending to Act 1.
Mm-hmm.
All the lines were different, but
yeah, I don't think me and Riley's scenes came together until the very end either, because they're all so similar. So like you would either cut out one line or add one line or add.
I don't think any of the show. I don't think any like the show itself didn't really come together to the end because it was so much.
I think a big difference for me, like between the Noises Off and Frog and Toad, was that it was crazy in the way that like how different it was to memorize things. Like I was thinking that Noises Off would be the one thing that I would have trouble memorizing, but Frog and Toad kicked me in the tuchus for getting stuff down, and it was tough.
Oh my god, Act 2. We'll talk about it later.
Why is that, do you think? I mean, because you would think incorrectly that a children's show would be easier to memorize.
I think because
It's a line.
It was all just repetition, so you like just keep going, like repeat it, and that's literally the way we rehearsed.
And if you messed it up, you could just no one would notice.
Yeah, nobody had any idea.
So like if I met like. There was a night that I messed up a line during Act 2, but like if anything that helped because we needed more time for a certain bit. Like or like stuff like that. For like I would mix up my Act 1 lines with my Act 2 lines. I never really mixed up Act 3 because it was so different from 1 and 2 that like it was easier just to remember what was actually going on. But at least for me, because I wasn't on it for half of it, just because I fell down the stairs.
Right.
It was so hard because they were so similar. Like, never forget when we were running the freaking show, and we started with Act 1, and I did my Act 2 monologue in one time. It was like, oh, what? That's why it was so hard, but it was like easy because once you got one of them, it was like, oh, all I have to do is differentiate each of the acts and everything. But then before that, it was like, what am I doing? Yeah. What is going on? It was so hard.
I think also having a show with like. So when we did Peter and the Starcatcher, you didn't really need, like you needed comedic timing, but it wasn't like necessary. It wasn't like important that it has to be like joke, laugh. This was like a sitcom. Like it was like an episode of Friends or like you literally it was like a laugh track. So like you had to like say the joke in the right way and to the right person, like a certain way for people to understand that it was a joke. And I think that was the hardest thing for all of us. Although like we all have pretty good comedic timing, like there's a reason why we were cast in the show because we have good comedic timing, but at the same time it was like hard to get it down correctly.
Especially if like you have to get the timing off of other people too. So like if the person before you doesn't know their line or like doesn't have the right comedic timing, then it's really hard to get yours down too.
One, it was hard to get off book and noises off, and two, it's hard to get off book, and it's hard when you're not off book to do anything.
Yeah, especially like when you're doing a scene with someone and it's like one of you knows it and one of you doesn't, and you're just like feeding out lines.
Especially Acts 2, because there was so much like action and you're holding a book in one hand, you can't like.
Well, what I wish we would have done, and I wish that we would have done differently is, so when Grinnell did it and they both cast, they did these things where it was like trapper keepers or whatever, but they had them right here flat, and they printed off all of Act 2. And as you went through Act 2, you had it in front of you so you could still look at it, but use both your hands. And I thought that was a really smart thing to do. And you know, like Mr. Hunter being Mr. Hunter, like of course he thinks that way. But I just thought that was like a really interesting way, because we did it before them, like a full like half month before. But like if I saw that on their Instagram when we were like, it was opening week, and I was like, that's a really like neat idea for that show.
Yeah.
Because Act 2, if you don't have it memorized, like you said, like it's hard, it's slow.
You can't interact with anybody else.
Like that one rehearsal that we had where we just went through it and did not stop, and
Yep.
we all left really upset with each other and not talking to each other. Hey, we can talk about the struggles, okay? Literally, it's number 3. 4.
That's
number
true.
4.
Okay, well,
That's true.
Your hands cut to me trying to, in Act 3, hold the phone, the plate, and the newspaper, and also like be wrapped up in the.
One thing that I thought was really well with this show, and it was a casting thing, was that
I'm not stupid.
it wasn't.
Yeah, that's what we were all
Like,
thinking.
I'd say all of us here who acted in it are fairly comedic people, and so if this show had any like super serious like all business type person, the show wouldn't have been as fun as it was, because they would have been so into being so like punctual with everything that would have got annoying.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Like there has to be some kind of like error in order for it to be funny.
I think that the coffee shop stuff that we did really helped.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Oh,
we all
yeah,
got
I
to
forgot about that.
outside rehearsal and just went through it. It helped me a lot.
Yeah, we all went to Dunbrose. Most of us went to Dunbrose together, and we would sit and just like go through our lines. And I know that helped me like get off book.
And
Also,
the rehearsal-
Lolly and I like went to
Oh, yeah.
country style a couple times so we can try to get my British accent down. Didn't really work, but I mean, like I got there
We got
kind
like
of
5 pages in,
Without-
an hour and a half.
for like laughing at me for every single word that I said, but it's
Hey.
fine.
Yeah, we did that too.
Also, the rehearsal that we had when you weren't here, and we all just sat in a circle and we read through Act 3 and then Act 1 was really helpful too.
What helped me is like I think we all wrote out like all the actions we did in Act 2.
Yeah.
But like I would sit down at home and I would just read to my mom all the actions. I'm like, okay, so after this I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this. And so then the only thing I'd have to focus on was my lines, because I was like, I already knew what my actions were.
For myself, I visualized a path. When in my script, I wish I had it with me, the sticky notes that I put on, that I had the Act 1 and Act 3 and then Act 2 maps of like everything. So I could really visualize what my path was and what I was picking up on the way. You know?
I know with this picture, I didn't figure out how to say that line, because it was like he said something and then I would go, oh man, what was it?
Or it could be genetic. I know
No.
Mari said or it could be genetic.
It was the thing before that. Anyway, but he was talking, and then
That was during my scene when I
Yeah.
was taking everything
Oh.
inside.
He's like, I don't know why I take this.
yeah, and then for a while I was saying it sarcastically as if I was mad at you for stopping it. It wasn't until I watched a couple different versions where I wasn't mad at that time. I was being dumb too, and I was literally being like, "Oh yeah, why do I? That's really smart." And so I know for me with Noises Off, it took a while for me to figure out how to actually say my lines correctly, instead of just going off and being the sarcastic person that I thought Gary was.
So more of the character depth
Yeah.
that was missing. Yeah.
I had to get rid of some depth in my character. Like, all right, what would
I had to get rid of depth.
You were too complicated.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
all right, we got to make this real basic. What are we doing? Yeah.
I remember the first night I watched you just playing with the wine bottle, and I was like, what is she doing? Oh,
Exactly.
she doesn't know either.
I would have played up Freddie a lot more if I could redo the show. That's one thing that I beat myself up about, because like going into the school year, I was like, I'm gonna make sure that I like know my character, like it's me, like that is me. Like I'm gonna make sure they have certain traits that they do, like certain things. Like I wish I would have worked more on like my posture when I switched between characters, because I've seen it done so many times where they don't do it, and I kind of did. Like I had Freddie slouched more, and I had Philip very like up and open, but I wish I would have worked with like my inflection and things like that, and like maybe lowering my voice for Philip and like having it my normal voice for Freddie, or something like along those lines, and just playing up more of my character than just like, oh, it's just Freddie walking by or stuff like that.
I like how in Noises Off there were you can make up your own bits. Like there was plenty of times during rehearsals where I would do something to Esme. Definitely, but whenever Esme would have to switch back into her on-stage character, I would snap at her. And there was plenty of things like that where you would do it, and your scene partner would go, "Keep that," and that made it. It felt a lot more like. It felt more like the blocking wasn't given, but it was more like improv for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, me and Molly had so many of those moments.
So funny. I love taking props away from her. Me and Molly like just ended up hating each
My
other.
favorite improv moment was me jumping up the stairs. When my pants came off.
Oh my god!
I
Yes.
never did it before. I just like walked up the stairs, and then it was the fourth block performance, our first audience, and I was like,
I heard it. I was
this
like,
up. So I just jumped every single step.
I thought
up,
something
waiting.
broke. I was sitting backstage. I was like, "What is going on?" So I look through the peak and I see you pants down.
So I think the hardest part about this scene was Selson was coming in from the back, and I had to go from like curmudgeon, old, grumpy old man to like angry, and it was a fun scene change because it was all like blatantly serious, and then Selson comes in just like Selson does, and it went from such a serious scene to that, and I think part of the keeping your character in character was difficult because it's just such an arbitrary shift.
Mm-hmm.
Big words.
I was like, wow.
Jacob had it.
Oh, Jacob had it? Yeah,
Wow.
that was like one of my favorite scenes.
I didn't realize I'm
Yeah.
this name.
There was one day where you literally like parted the flowers.
I
You
cut
went,
them in half and then I stuck my face in the flowers. There was one rehearsal that I like put my head out of it, and then my hairspray hair that was like disgustingly stiff got caught in the flower, and I yanked a flower out of it and just hooked onto my head.
I love looking at pictures of Jacob's face, or more of his hair, because I remember each night when we had like a costume run, Aubrey would take him outside, cover his face with a paper plate, and just spray him all over.
Yep.
Here, hold this.
Yep.
I insisted Aubrey to do it because she was like, "You just gotta hold, just breathe in the fumes. It's safe." I'm like, "It's not safe."
No, it's not.
Aerosol.
I like this photo a lot
Selson.
because it reminds me that every single night we did Act 2, Riley and I would run around the set in a different path.
Yeah, I know. And I was
The
like,
path was different every single night.
And it looked more real.
Yeah, because I was actually terrified of some of them. And then one night I crawled, then I started like crawling under like certain parts of the set and stuff like that. And then I stabbed my knee into like the top of a bolt, and there's a burn mark on my pants now because of it, and I have a scar on my knee because of it. But I remember just having like the biggest, blackest bruise after the show. So that's me. You had like.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. I
god.
had this ginormous bruise.
Yes, I had a gigantic bruise right here.
From
because
falling
I
over
fell,
the couch.
I fell over the couch like 20 times. And I was like, why does this hurt so bad? And then I was like, oh, that's what it is.
I strive to have
Horrible.
bruise or some sort of injury in every show. Not like I want it to happen.
Do you want no?
But if it
I
has
still
to,
have a scar on
that
my
means
butt
I'm
from
committed
this.
to it. And there was one time, it was in Act 2 when we were when Mari and Lala were dragging JJ back and forth, and you slipped and ate the ground.
I remember that.
You were running and, like, I broke there because I was like,
Oh, yeah.
your right foot went out like that, and you thought like, boom, and I stopped and went, and then kept going.
I remember that. That was really fun.
So
I remember getting up and I was like,
Casey, I guess you just tend to fall fall when you're on stage with me.
I guess. Yeah.
Guys, we talk about the elephant in the room in the beginning of Act 2. How long in the beginning of Act 2 took us to get down.
I'm not even part of this because I didn't even come on for 10 pages into the act, so y'all can discuss.
Okay, well, I just remember that being one of the, like, I dreaded Act 2 for that reason, and it was like, that was the only part of the show that wasn't repeated. Like, that was one of the only times that, like, it had nothing to do with nothing on. Or whatever the show was.
Yeah, it's
Nothing
Nothing
on, okay. Yeah, I just remember that being, like, the worst time, and then all of our entrances being slow for, like, the first, like, 2 weeks. It was just slow, and there's no type of, like, snapping back to it. There was nothing, like, going on. People weren't remembering cue lines. I was one of the people that didn't remember cue lines at all. I just remember, like, that act I just did not think about whenever we'd go home and, like whenever I'd go home and, like, look at the show, because I was like, oh, Act 1 is more important than Act 2. Act 3 is more important, like, memorizing, and it's like, not really, because that should have been my biggest, like, thing to tackle first, and then I could have tackled the rest of the show.
I remember a big problem for me in Act 2 was like the cue lines, because like a lot of the time the actions were going faster than the cue lines on stage. So I was like, when am I supposed to go on? Am I supposed to go on when I hear the cue line like on stage, or when I hear the backstage action that's happening? That was a big problem for me. It was like you just kind of have to go with the flow, I guess.
Yeah.
I just remember Act 2 being my absolute favorite thing on the planet Earth because I would go on stage and just sit on the couch.
Oh, there were many times.
So out of breath.
There was that one part of the show that we ran like 6 times, and it was the part that you and I were
We were on stage.
And
We
so
just
there
go
was
on
a good
stage.
45 minutes of rehearsal where Lolly and I just went on stage and just sat on the couch.
We were just chilling.
During the full, like, during the actual run too, like, Lolly and I would sit on the back couch during our scene of, like, letters, what letters? Like, that whole scene, when she'd walk in, I would go and sit directly on the couch.
And then whenever he came in, I was like, oh my god, I have to get up. Because that was when I had to leave.
And then my little, like, the whole spiel about, like, before I went and walked into the study, I just remember, like, I'd be sitting there, Lolly do her thing, she'd be like, oh, I gotta go check on, like, another plate or whatever, the sardine stuff. Walk out the door, and then I would still just be sitting there, like, wave to her goodbye as I'm saying my scene. Like, I just, like, got out of character for, like, 5 seconds just so I can, like,
There were several times where I just looked at the techies and I was like,
that was the funniest thing when I got to see like the techies' expressions, like every single time that we were backstage, and I would just like I'd see like Tyla and like Angela and all them just like laugh and just like not know how to control themselves because they were like it was so funny.
Literally, Colton, every single time that we went back.
Oh my god, the door
oh my god,
man!
that was so funny because the first time that the phone broke during rehearsal, it like snapped off and then it came back in and I looked at Colton and I was like, that's not supposed to be back here, so I just threw it back out. Bro, I don't know how we kept it together. This is so
Wave him every night. Even like during shows, because he was there holding the door, and there was a time where I poked my head through it, I think the study door, and I go in and I go, hello, and then I just close it back out.
Doing research this fall has made me aware of some persistent issues and problems in education, specifically in fine arts education and in drama, theater education specifically. Firstly, with the Booth article, I had to question myself in light of Booth's definition of a teaching artist, and I'm still not sure exactly where I fit in his description. However, bearing in mind my position as a teaching artist, at least as far as my students are concerned, examining both the NEA white paper at the beginning of the semester and the Dana Foundation documents at the end of the semester solidified some of my questions and pointed towards some possible answers, at least in the future. One of the key items referenced in both the NEA document and the Dana documents is the idea that better scientific research and technology will provide us with concrete evidence that participating in a performing art is beneficial to one's learning trajectory and skills development. Whereas I believe that this will probably prove to be true, I think some larger societal and cultural issues affect my students in ways that I, as a teacher and teaching artist, may not be able to combat. Which leaves me in an awkward position in which I try to improve as an effective teacher while also striving to understand and accommodate students whose lives are often full of barriers to learning and growing.
My favorite thing was, you know, the handle that comes off. But in the one rehearsal where it came off too early, and I was like, and you're like, this isn't supposed to happen yet.
in your seat, and as we were standing there, like.
It was great.
Nothing feels
I'm
better
trying to get the door open.
than like when LaCour laughs at your jokes.
Yes.
When LaCour would laugh at my jokes, I'd be like, I nailed it. Like I got it.
Because I've heard them 5,000 times, so it has to be good when I'm laughing out loud.
That you gave me the note in Act 3 to be more disgusting when I sat on the sardines, and you were laughing so hard. I was like, yes, I did.
I literally gagged.
Yeah,
it made me gag. Like,
I just love like the rehearsal like times where like you finally take a note from LaCour or like whoever gives us the note, and then we just hear them laughing in the audience.
My favorite moments from the show was when we had our first like dress rehearsal, and Jacob's pants fell down, and he had the funniest underwear ever.
Yeah.
The funniest, longest pink old man underwear. So it's in this photo, and
It
I
is.
just remember he's got the whiskey, and his pants just fall down.
Wait,
I had to
I
show him
didn't think
on
he had
stage.
underwear on. I thought it was his legs. Like, I really
Yeah.
thought
He
he
did.
just not wearing underwear, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Like,
oh my gosh.
Jacob, what
I was
are
like,
you
this is high school theater. This isn't like we can't do that.
And right behind us is when JJ and I are like freaking out with Abby. Like we run, and I almost fell because I would just
Are we
do
surprised?
that, and we just hold on, and we're just freaking out, and then this happens. Tim's holding an axe, and his pants fall down.
Yes.
I remember when we
ripped
were
the
running
script.
Act 2 in rehearsals, and my dress came undone, and I didn't realize that it was undone, and then I looked down and I saw my boobs. I was like, what the heck? JJ like ripped my
She fixed it, and then I was looking for the sardines, so I like opened up her shirt, and then I went from behind you and I lifted up your skirt.
Yeah. Yep, I remember that. A lot of that.
I remember I looked under your shirt once too and the flask fell out.
Walking around like backstage.
No,
The
Jacob
mouth thing
talking
you
to
did.
the wall.
That was so funny. Every night you do that backstage, you just look at the wall.
You were talking to the wall.
I'd see you backstage and you'd look at me like,
I remember on closing night, he was teaching Holden and I how to walk like Celsius. Just stumble around.
So like the rest of the like behind the.
Yeah, when we're standing behind, we're all ready to come out as the three burglars. He's teaching us how to walk like Celsius.
I remember the fourth block performance when, because Jacob comes through the audience, obviously during Act 1 when he first enters, and we had ran through it so many times in just rehearsal, nobody there, and I remember they just started laughing, and it was during the serious like scene where I'm like talking about how I'm gonna lose all my money, and then everyone starts laughing. I'm like, you guys are jerks. This isn't funny. And then I just look over like out of the corner of my eye and see.
It was always so hard because I'd come out the door, and two of the nights, like I'd open the door, and there's one person sitting in that first chair that would open right as I opened the door. First night it was Mr. Shovelin, and I looked and we made eye contact, and I almost broke, and I just looked over because I knew I could not do that staring contest. And then the other night it was, I think it was Mr. Mosier, and I was like, nope.
Not today.
Shake the hands.
Because I work with high school students every day in an area with both inner city neighborhoods and rural and upscale neighborhoods, I'm skeptical when I read some of these research studies. I know my students, and I know that many of them struggle, yet those who participate in our fine arts programs do better in school, graduate, and are able to set and achieve educational and professional goals. Therefore, I tend to distrust results of scientific studies without knowing the details of their student database. There are so many outside factors, differences, and interpretations impacting the results of these studies. If I change my teaching strategies every time a new study reveals some sort of benefit or detriment, I'll never find consistency, and I will not know my own ability to help my students. Therefore, using my own students as one of my reference data sets, I think I will have a pretty good idea of the strengths and weaknesses of my program, and I should be able to change and improve some things immediately that will make the next production even better, for them, for their growth, and for other students who may be waiting in the wings.
To like memorize lines and stuff, I have to do it with someone else. I cannot sit there and just read it by myself because that throws me off more than anything. And I then just get into like my own world, and then I don't remember the cue lines, and it just doesn't make sense to me. But going with other people, it like helps me. But at the same time, I know it like having a break in there, I could like read over the script a couple times just so I understand like the flow of it, because I don't understand the story until like 3 weeks into the process, if I'm being honest.
Same.
Because I don't really, I'm not looking at everybody. I'm looking at just myself. So, but like, and I know that would give me a lot of time to like sit down, because I read myself over the summer before auditions, because I was like, oh, I want to see like what character I should put on my audition form, or like if I like want to be a part of the show and everything, and like looking at it as like a whole first really helped me out. But I think like we should have more than just one table read, because we had one table read for Noises Off and we only got through act 1, I think.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
a
true.
little bit of act 3. But I think we should have table reads until we're done with the show. And then as a cast, we should sit and talk about it. And maybe so everyone's on the same page. We all kind of have like a general idea of what we want the show to look like, how we want like the flow of the show to go, while also talking with like you, or if it's for another show, like those directors, and just kind of having like an overall sense of like the themes I guess we want to portray in the show.
Or even understanding like the little
Sorry.
but even understanding the jokes, because I know sometimes we didn't understand the jokes we were giving until like the day before our first show. We're like, that's what that joke, that's funny!
I really enjoyed the like the thing that JJ was talking about, the circle reads. With like Noises Off specifically, like I think doing that like a couple more times would have helped for me specifically. Just also like when I looked at the script originally, I didn't like see that I had a lot of lines, so I was like, oh, it's fine. I don't have to you know actually study them. But I did, because I was at just as behind as everybody else. When they had like 4 times as many lines as I did. So I just think those circle reads like force everybody to like actually like get familiar with the lines, even if they choose to go home and not do as much work as they need to, like myself. So I just think that like maybe just like a couple more of those, if you could.
A specific reason for the table read, like okay, so this time we're gonna focus on like what the theme of this act is, or like what the main goal is.
Like
Maybe that might help.
general.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like for Mary Poppins, like for example, if we went over the scene that we're like, so we go through the full week, and then Friday we have a table read of just like the scene we'll be working on the following week, and we can just kind of sit together and be like, okay, this is like what should be happening in this. This is how Mary should be acting. This is how Bert should be acting. This is how the ensemble should be like going about their day, and like things like that. I think that'd be a lot easier to do. And then also it'd give us like a little break on Friday, because after having like a super long week, I know sometimes Friday rehearsals are really like, they're kind of damaging to our energy, because we're just so over with everybody and we don't care anymore. And we just like want to get out. Or like even with Noises Off, we had so many conflicts during that time, because we had like marching band on Fridays, and we had like all-state stuff, and just all during that time, it was just a bunch of like crap that we had in the way.
Something I think is super beneficial, because of what we did for Frog and Toad, and we do it for the musical too, but it's having the calendar of exactly what you're going to work on every single day. So that way you know.
Makes you feel more prepared.
Makes you feel more prepared, and then it kind of like, not everybody follows it, but that's an expectation that you should look over what's going to be happening that day at rehearsal, so the rehearsal will run a lot smoother, versus like when we would run like act 3, because we didn't really run it that much towards the beginning, which is why it was so like rough to get started with it. So like if we all would have gone home, like if we would have said, hey, we're going to work on act 3 tomorrow, everyone needs to go home and like look through act 3, or like look through act 3 that day during school, I feel like it would have made it run a lot smoother, because we all would have been like, it would have been fresh in our heads because we were looking at it.
Especially in Frog and Toad, the calendar made me feel like we weren't stressing towards the end and like stressing. Like, did we forget something? Because the calendar was there. We'd already seen that we had everything down.
One thing for musicals that I think was beneficial is we kind of did it within the Heights and kind of did less with Les Mis, but like it might suck depending on the musical, depending on like how much ensemble are there. But like personally, when I first started listening to a show, I find it on Apple Music, find it on Spotify, and I listen to it through.
Yeah.
And I feel like if once music gets down enough where we don't really have to be our faces and our librettos in a music, like a singing rehearsal, is run through the show one to blank. Don't jump all around. Don't say here, here, and there. Depending on the musical, like I said, it might be a longer rehearsal, but I feel like if you did that, it wouldn't only get the flow of the show down, but it would help you understand, in the music sense, like what's happening and like what it should feel like.
I feel like with musicals, kind of just like going off of what Riley said, I feel like with musicals, people, like, yeah, the music is there and the lines are there, but I feel like sometimes people forget that the music tells a story too. And so they, when you are rehearsing it, like, okay, all of Nina's and then all of Vanessa's and like that, you forget the story part of it, and then it's hard to like put the right inflections or like, you know, get the phrasing together in the songs.
Well, for Les Mis though, we did, because like, even though I had one song, I was still like told to come to all the rehearsals for it. But like, if you were a lead, you had to go through your song and like read it more as if like it was a poem or like you talking about it, so you didn't have like the rhythms in there to like mess up what it was actually about. I think for some of us it helped, and for others it was more of a challenge. But I mean, if like for Mary Poppins or even Frog and Toad, like if we would have went through each song and been like, okay, so this is like the storyline of this song, and just kind of had it like written down in a Google Doc somewhere, or like if we had like homework with drama club and it was like you need, because like our homework for Les Mis was research. You need to go, we had a packet of everything that's happening in that time and like how certain people of different wealths and everything would be that way. Like that was our homework. And so like Mary Poppins, our homework should be like go home and like listen to the songs. What is the story that you're trying to say in the song?
I forgot we did that in Les Mis.
Yeah, that's
but, like that helped a lot.
Yeah.
I think we kind of did two things in Les Mis like that, and I think so it's like one of them was there was one rehearsal I remember we all went through a song, we all wrote down a bunch of stuff, like this is what this line is, this is kind of like the inflection, what's going on and stuff. And we did another rehearsal where it was like you got a partner, and you took lines from it, and you just focused on just the inflection of saying it with a partner. And I think I like the second one better, because sometimes like when you like write stuff down, like sometimes writing it down doesn't like help you as much as
Like an outside opinion from someone.
Doing it.
yeah. Or sometimes if you have someone in music who might be like, I really don't want to write it down, and they might just not. But everyone who's in theater is going to definitely act, because that's why you're in theater.
The Beggars, where it was essentially the ABC Cafe boys inside working on a song, and then all the ensemble was out, or whoever else was in the scene was out in the lobby doing it. And I felt that brought energy back up definitely for that scene, because the people who were out there came in and saw what the leads were on, and then the lead saw, or whoever was in there saw what the ensemble was working on, and it made it like, in a way it made it better rather than having people sit there and wait for them to get done. And it brought energy up, because it was like, it all came together that quickly. And so I think if you split up more and built the scenes separately and brought it together just a few times, that would definitely bring all the energy up for the whole thing.